Welcome to Daughter Issues.
Welcome
How are
to
you guys? You guys doing all right?
Get every single episode plus video and talk to us in the comments at daughterpod.com.
Today's all about Gen Z. You know what I've noticed, and I was texting with a friend of mine, and she said, "How is Gen Z both the most savage yet the most fragile generation to ever exist?" There's something about you people. You are so savage. The politics. Travis and I were talking about this before the show. The politics of Gen Z, you just might save our country.
Dude, yeah.
You just might. Like, we got close, man. I mean, so close.
To what?
Just to losing it all, to losing democracy, and the school shooting thing is where Gen Z is drawing the line. They're storming like
Tennessee right now, dude.
Tennessee congressional sessions. There are like 3 Congress members that are about to get fired for joining with the Gen Z protesters. Like fired, like they're getting kicked out of Congress because they helped organize the protest. Gen Z is y'all some bosses. It's cool. But you're also sad, like you're mean. You're mean. You say horrible things to young people who are slightly older than you. You call them boomers. You're mean. You call us old. You say terrible things to us. You saw me without my shirt on 2 years ago and said I looked like I was wearing a white gorilla suit. Brutal.
I feel like it would still be true.
Just brutal. I asked you when you were like 6, I asked you if you were going to have a radio show when you grew up, and you said, no, I want to spend time with my kids. We spent 5 days a week together, but the one day I was busy working on my show, you were like, nope, I'm going to spend time with my kids. I was like, well, I'm canceling all my interviews for the week.
Well,
you were so brutal,
there's a
yet
certain
you
amount
were
of
so
honesty.
fragile.
Well, yeah, I was.
No, you still are.
What do you mean?
Gen Z just in general is known for it. Like
Gen
you will
Z
say
is-
horrible things to somebody, and then we clap back and go, hey, and you're like, need a mental health break from this conversation, and then the conversation's
I
over.
don't think so. Calm down, Boomer. I
See?
think
Savagery.
I'm not done yet.
Yep.
Speaking. Thank you.
You're just going to prove my point this entire
so
show.
I think you have a certain truth to that, but you do what you do and you exaggerate, so that's okay. But I think they both come with everything's gonna come with the like negative side. I think with how you guys were raised. I mean, we are savage, we are mean. Who raised us? You guys. How did you guys grow up? Right? So I think for us, it's like we've kind of, in a way, built our own community in an odd way. It's like we were raised by Gen X and all that, and by some millennials, but I think we were definitely... What's going on here?
She's agreeing with you.
My wife, my
His
millennial
wife
wife
popped out.
came in and was giving
She's
me
like
mad
snapping
snap.
because she agreed with you, yeah.
Yeah, there you are, there you are.
See? Somebody's on my side. But I don't
She's a boomer.
no, she's not.
What does she know?
She's closer to Gen Z than you'll ever be.
She's a boomer.
But I think we've definitely kind of created our own little community outside of Gen X, and it really pushes out a lot of the other generations in a way, just because we're kind of angry in a way with how a lot of Gen X raised us, because it's so different now. Like, even from millennial to Gen X, like, it is different, but like it is so different from Gen X to Gen Z. So I think, if anything, this is the biggest society-wise, I think we have the biggest difference between Gen X and Gen Z, and most of Gen Z was raised by Gen X. So I think there's a lot of headbutting. There's a lot of stuff that clashes there. So we kind of created our own little community, whether it was on TikTok or Instagram or whatever's going on, and we kind of feel safe because we're like, we know and we understand what's going on
I get
and how
it.
we are.
I think you're spot on, and I'm pretty sure what she was giving you snaps to was that the way Gen X raised you and the way we were raised.
Exactly.
That, I think, is the key. Honestly, I don't know about what is your cat doing right now? My God.
Going deep in that beehole.
going deep in that beehole. All right.
Yeah.
The leg was just straight up in the air. And it was just,
Something you wish you
Okay.
could do is just like itch the spots you can't itch. And
I mean, she'll probably bite you, but you could try.
I was saying like yourself.
Oh.
Don't use the cat to itch yourself.
Please don't. We'll have a new podcast.
I think it's a crime.
Father has issues. This is a new.
No, so this is the interesting thing that I think you just said, that, or at least it made me have this thought. I don't know how you grew up, Travis. You're millennial, right? So
Yeah, my parents are boomers.
your parents are boomers. Okay, so you probably grew up
Mhm.
similar to me then.
Maybe worse.
In
Similar
that-
to the-
in
there's
that-
a gap.
Here's the thing,
Yeah.
though. Here's the thing. We our parents were savage to us. We were not allowed to be savage back. We were not allowed to even ask why. 90% of the time, what was the answer to why? Because it said so. Because
I
it
know.
said so.
My grandma was a boomer, so I
Right.
know.
So it was very much children are to be seen and not heard,
Mm-hmm.
and rarely even seen.
Mm-hmm.
If there was an adult event happening at the house, kids were not even allowed in the damn living room. You were to go away. And slowly it became this, well, I guess you can come out, just don't say anything. And you can come out and eat, but you got to go sit at the kids' table. You were always separated. It was almost like
Yeah.
classism, right? Where it was like you are like my cousins were fed on the floor, like literal pets. Like their parents would, my aunts and uncles would put food, literal plates on the floor and make them sit on the
Can
floor.
I pause you right there? I want you to get to your point, but the difference between that is they're being forced, and Gen Z chooses to sit on the floor now. We're like, no, we want to be with the moss. Let me eat on the ground with my pizza.
Yeah. The idea was that we were never allowed to ask why.
Yeah.
So the idea was authority is authority, and you shut up and you do what you're told. I think Gen X hated that so much, and millennials as well,
Yeah.
hated that so much that we are still savage to you, but we allow you to push back
Mm-hmm.
because we were never allowed to.
Mhm.
We allowed you to ask why. You never got in trouble for asking me why. In fact, anytime you asked why, I would answer you and I would pick you up and I would show you and I would draw. I kept whiteboards around the house because every moment was a possible teachable moment. So anytime, can I go outside? No. My mom would, and you say why? My mom would have said, because I said so. Get your ass in the room and close the door. Like I would have just been yelled.
Yeah.
My mom would yell at me sometimes for her thoughts. And I know she listens to this show. She's rolling her eyes or swearing up and down this ain't true. But she would go like this. She would be telling me something. I hadn't said a word yet. She would be giving me instructions. And then in her own mind, she's imagining how bad it's going to be if I don't follow the instructions. So as she's giving instructions, she's pissing herself off. She would go, all right, I'm getting off work at 3:30. Now I want you to have the dishes done. And if you don't have them dishes done by the time I get home, now you get them done and I mean it, or you ain't going outside. And I'm like, Mom, I haven't even give me a chance to screw this up.
Yeah.
So we were kind of just assumed that we were going to screw up. You know, it was assumed that we were going to drop the ball or be ridiculous. So, and my mom would be like, be home at 10. David, be home at 10 and I mean it.
Well, were
Like,
you late?
Never. I was such a good kid. Ask your grandma.
I'll give her a
I
call.
was such a good kid.
I talked to her today.
I'm sorry about that. I mean, good. I'm glad you
Hey.
talked to your grandma.
Hey, I love my grandma.
Well, bring up politics next time you're on the phone. It'll be a hoot.
You don't talk to politics with any family. We should. I think everyone on the planet
Nope.
knows that except for you.
Nope. Check out my other podcast for that one.
Unless
Talk
it's
to all your family.
it's causing problems or
Well-
safety issues, then yes, it needs to be addressed. But in this case,
I would say our democracy is pretty important.
I
All right. So
didn't
anyway.
say it wasn't. Straw man
Okay. So anyway.
penalty.
So I think you're onto something with that. There's this, the fact that Gen Z or Gen X and Millennial weren't allowed to ask why. We weren't allowed to challenge our parents. Any challenge was considered like offensive or assault to their ego.
Yeah.
We weren't allowed to. So I think we as a parenting generation now, when you pop back off like, well, that's dumb. Part of us is like, you little shit. And then the other part is like, man, I wish I could have said that.
Yeah.
Like, I wish I could have voiced my opinion. And we know that we held in so much and then resented our parents for not being able to speak. I would rather you pop back off something to me that I don't like than for you to hold in resentment.
Yeah.
So just get all your resentment out in front of me and then we can move on.
Yeah.
It's healthier that way.
Well,
And I
but-
think as a result, Gen Z can be very savage to their parents or their millennial, counterparts, their Gen X counterparts.
Yeah. Well, and there's limits to everything as well, and there's boundaries to everything, and there's also going too far versus not going too far. Or being able to respectfully say how you feel about something, or say as a kid that you disagree with something, then to go too far. Now, I will say something that I will stand by. I think the best parents we are ever going to have ever are going to be millennials.
Well,
because
that's offensive.
I'm saying as a whole generation.
Wow.
As a whole generation.
I'm kind of a millennial. I'm like 1 year
Well, I was
into
gonna
it.
say
You had a pretty awesome father, I think.
I think, but I'm just saying, like, as a whole, Jesus, this is the issues.
This is the savagery
this
I was
is-
talking about. They'll
this
just
is-
rip your heart right out of your chest
this
and watch it beat and go, look at that. Take a selfie.
It's all those damn memes.
I think this is the sprinkle of millennial in you. You're so snowflakey. It's just like it's ridiculous. You need to stop. Just calm down for a second.
Oh, my mom
What-
would have backhanded me for that one.
But what I'm saying is, I think especially on TikTok, I think there's so many parenting videos going around, and then there's so many amazing moments and so many different. It's almost a trend now to be a good mom. Like it's odd to see, really, like how it's amazing to see, but it is odd to see so many parenting videos and people trying to show other people. And a lot of people are mad at people like, oh, you're videoing your 4-year-old using. Half the time that's not what it is, and if it is for that, you'll kind of know by their page. But a lot of these pages are promoting like, this is my 4-year-old having a meltdown. I'm not ashamed of this happening. It's not like, because a lot of, I think, Gen Xers and boomers are like, you better not freak out in this Walmart. You're gonna make me look bad like a parent. And a lot of millennials are filming it and going, this is how I'm handling it. And then other people in the comments are going, wow, that really worked. And the kid got to talk about its feelings at 4 years old. It was like, I just felt very frustrated. And we're like, what? We didn't know 4-year-old. And there's a lot of emotion in those little bodies. And so being, taught at a young age how to express them is really amazing. So I think millennials are going to be one of the best rounds of parents, if anything. Those are what I've seen anyways. And
Right, because
But-
if we would have thrown a fit, we would hear the same sentence. I'll give you something to cry about.
yeah.
That was it. I'll give you something to cry about.
I feel like boomers forgot about the phrase "it takes a village," because I'm sure you heard this a lot growing up. The phrase "Don't you tell me how to raise my kids?"
Yep.
And I'm like, well, maybe someone should, because your kid sucks and you suck.
Wait, were both of our parents rednecks? Did you grow up in the South?
Yeah. Well, no, I grew up in the country in Ohio, Southern Ohio, so like
okay.
Appalachia, but farm country.
Wow. Okay.
So yeah, they were rednecks. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
they were definitely rednecks.
All right.
Wow, yeah. Very similar. And I mean, and don't get me wrong, you shouldn't always be able to question authority. I think there are some times where there's not enough time to explain something, and it should be just because you said so, because you have more information, or because it's in a moment of need. Or let's say you're driving, you shouldn't be like, why should I turn this way? And then you get rammed into. Some
Right.
things should just be listened to through that, and I think that comes through
Well,
people figuring that out.
so what I always did with you is if I didn't have time and it was an urgent situation, I would say I'll explain later.
Right, yeah.
Do it, I'll explain later. Or like when I was teaching you to drive, I would sit you down before and I would say, Talissa, this is very important. You could put our lives in danger. When I tell you to do something, I need you to do it immediately.
Right.
Do not hesitate.
Right.
And some of the times I got irritated with you was when you didn't do that. I would say go, and you'd go, no, now? I'm like, Talissa, go. And I'm like, stop. And then you'd have to slam on the brakes, and I'd be like, damn it. And you're like, I don't want to drive with you. And I'm like, I just need you to listen.
Well, and
Because
that
that's where I would get frustrated, is that you were, I don't understand. I'm
But
not
and
a
even
driving
you,
instructor.
and even though, from my perspective, I am in control of the vehicle, and I see giant objects flying around. You're like, go, and I'm like, are you sure?
Yeah, I've
so
seen
to
you make
me-
mistakes before.
Well, yeah, well, it's not even
Didn't
just
you
that.
get into an accident once, Dad?
It's
I'm
not
like,
even
"Yeah."
just that. I'm like, the biggest difference is that my hands are on the wheel now. And I'm like, you're
Yeah.
like, just go. I'm like, is it really that simple? Because I'm a little nervous right now.
Let me tell you, I went to the driving instructor website when I was like trying to see if maybe I should sign her up for classes. And at the very top, it was like FAQs, tips to help. And I don't know if they do this on purpose. It was like tips to help you teach your kid to drive. Step number 1, don't get frustrated with them as they're driving. And I was like, well, shit, I'm signing up for this course because somebody else needs to teach her to
Yeah.
drive because I'm losing my mind. So,
And that's the best way
and
to
I
do it.
did. And I did. I signed you up and you did great. And
I got 100% on my permit, 100% on my driver's test. Never got anything wrong.
You also learned to
everything.
drive here, right? Like here in Los Angeles.
Well,
actually,
I
no.
learned to drive on a stick shift on a Mustang. It was like a 5.0 at nighttime while it was raining
in
Texas. But we were just
Oh,
going on
okay.
a trip to visit. So I
Yeah.
lived in California, but he taught me there. And then my driving experience happened in California.
I wanted, we talked about this the other day, just the two of us, that my parenting style was very much like swing with 2 bats in when you're on deck and then go out there and crack home runs.
Right.
She didn't know that's what I was doing the whole time. She just thought life was going to be really difficult. And so
That's great though.
now it's kind of, the pressure valve is coming off. So I always try to teach her everything a little more dramatically than it was supposed to be, thinking it would make it easier. And a lot of what it did is just make her not want to do stuff. So, my bad.
That's why I don't like cooking. This is
Yeah,
why
she
Zoe
doesn't want to
cooks.
cook. She doesn't want to drive. She doesn't want to.
I tell
No.
Zoe, I buy groceries, you cook everything because I'm not doing it.
So, for me, I was like, when I wanted to learn how to drive, I always wanted to learn how to drive a stick in case of emergencies.
Yeah.
Because Gen Z there's fewer and fewer stick shifts or whatever, and I don't ever want her to be in a situation where she needs to drive somebody and can't. And she figured that out, and then she learned on a motorcycle how to shift as well. So she at least knows the basics. Like, I'm not saying she could get out there and pass a test, but she could definitely drive a stick shift if she needed to.
I could get to a hospital.
She could get to a hospital on just about anything with wheels. And that was my point. And so I taught her that. It just so happened to be in a sports car, and it just so happened to be while it was raining.
And nighttime.
And at night. So I took her to this basically deserted spot around my old high school and taught her around this old Everman High School building where there was no traffic.
Well, now hold on. No traffic, right? Okay, let's take that. There was a parking lot, but the way to get out was just a 2-way and like a double yellow line. And so I'm like peeking my nose out going, I better go if I'm going to go because these cars, and there's bushes on both sides. So I'm like,
Yeah.
but I did end up driving to the Family Dollar and the stuff around there.
Yeah.
So I ended up getting us home and everything and figured it out.
And you
So-
got to admit, when you got back to Texas and got in a hybrid, you were like, oh, this is so much easier.
Yeah, I was definitely like, I could go to sleep while doing this. Like, this is easy.
Not really what I had in mind, but okay.
But it's
Yeah.
it's how it felt. I was like, wow, this is perfect. It might be why I fall asleep during the drive.
Still my fault somehow for making it do it. No, I wanted you to be a
just
badass,
kidding.
and I think you kind of are.
Yeah,
I think
I think it
overall
worked.
you're kind of a badass.
I think it worked for the most part.
You were like what, 3? I think we've talked about this on the show before, and I want to know your take on this, on why so many people with Gen Z or in Gen Z are just like, I don't know if it's socially anxious, but they're kind of afraid to speak up,
Mhm.
which
I
is
agree with
weird. I never wanted you, because I had friends like that when I was in high school that were just afraid to ask questions. They were afraid to raise their hand. I would ask whatever I don't give a damn. This is your job. Answer this because I don't want to fail this class. But there were friends that would pull me aside later and be like, what was this? And I was like, why didn't you ask the teacher? And they're just like, I was afraid. I don't want to look dumb, or I don't want her to be mean to me. And I'm like, screw her. It's her job. Like, I don't know. I never found that to be, I was never shy, I guess. And so I didn't get it. And so I wanted to make sure you weren't like that. So
Right.
I always made you order your own food. I always made you would be like 7 and be like, I want pizza. You'd have your friends over, and I'm like, here's the phone and here's the credit card.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you need to find a place. You need to call them. And you'd be on the phone, trying to order pizzas. And normally, they were pretty sweet with you or whatever. But I remember one time, Travis, she came in in a panic. She ran in and she was like, what's our zip code? It's like, what? Our zip code? And I could hear the lady laughing on the other end of the phone. And she's like, I keep telling her 817. And I'm like, that's our area code.
Oh,
the
yeah.
zip code, and I would give her the zip code of whatever Texas town we lived in. And so I would make her call. One time we were at a restaurant, and you go, Dad, I want the chicken strips.
I was
Right.
little.
And I go, Talissa, I don't fucking work here. Like sounds brash or whatever, but I would do that because I want. And you would just go. I'd be like, find somebody in a black apron.
Well, because I was like, yeah, you're right.
And
Who
she would-
does work here?
She'd go over to the hostess and be like, I want chicken strips. They're like, oh, okay, well, I got you crayons, but let me find your waiter. I'm like,
I'll figure it
you
out.
know. So now, as when you were a teenager, you were like the little leader in your group because people would come to you. Like, you'd pull up to a drive-through, and people wouldn't want to order their food because they didn't want to talk to a speaker.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so and even when I was little, even when we would get dropped off at Chili's, just for like 30 minutes when we were, 10, just to have a dinner on our own. You guys would be in the parking lot waiting on us, but
Yeah.
we wanted it, whatever. I was the one to order for everyone. Everyone was nervous, and I think that's honestly more apparent in Texas because think about it. We have Gen Z who's like, I'm allowed to question authority because that's initially what
Sure.
it is, but we still have a school system of which most teachers are what generation?
Boomers and Gen
And
X.
most of them don't. Either they do have kids or they don't because they deal with them. So it's just like they know for the most part, but also teachers are just they're mistreated in so many other ways. Whether it's not getting paid enough, or the students drive them absolutely nuts, not having enough off days, not having enough help with the kids. So they're already driving themselves nuts with the job that they have, and then they have to now help kids learn for one, and not one but multiple, and they might all learn differently. Like that is a lot of pressure. So for them, they do have the mentality just to go, I just, because I say so, because of this, because of that. So they go to school every day, first of all, on certain amount of sleep, amount of stress of their parents, and then going to school and having to deal with all of that. It just kind of works into that mentality of authority knows better. I don't know enough. I'm not allowed to ask certain questions, and a lot of school or bullies or people is just shut up. That's what it is. Just shut up. So a lot of kids throw on their hood and keep to themselves, and that's why they're on their own, doodling, drawing, having a blast by themselves. They learn how to be happy by themselves. So when they're out in public, they don't really know how to react with other people. And a lot of the times too, the life is go to school, find a job. Go to school, and if you're at the age, find a job. It's not go out with your friends. That's not the mentality of Texas. It's not you need to have some fun too. It's more like, all right, we'll eat as a family, but when you go out, it better be with someone else's family and with whoever. It's not a priority to make sure socially that they're good, especially in schools and especially at home. Really, I don't think it's paid attention
It's also
to.
a huge blind spot from my generation. Like, I asked my dad one time why he drank so much. I was probably 12 or 13. I said, why do you drink so much? And he said, it's cheaper than therapy.
Mm.
And then he laughed. He made everything a joke, and he had never in his life talked to a therapist. Turns out he had some terrible trauma when he was a kid. I've never talked about it publicly, and I won't start now. It's his business, not mine. He had some terrible trauma, some stuff that happened to him when he was like 19. And that's why he drank. But I didn't find that out until about 5 years before he died. Like, I went my whole life going, my dad just drinks a lot.
I mean, same.
I had
My
no
grandpa
clue.
just drank a lot. That's kind of what I just.
Oh, I thought you were talking about your dad. I'm like, I'm right here. What are
No,
you talking
I was
about?
saying like grandpa. I was like, yeah, grandpa just drank a lot. I didn't really even have
Yeah.
or know what was going on. It was just kind of
Right.
what he
Right.
did.
And so I remember my mom saying one time, I was like 16 or whatever, and I came home from work and I hated my job. And she's like, well, take your ass to McDonald's and put in an application. I'm like, Mom, I don't want to work like this. I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to work. I don't want to do that kind of work. I want to do creative stuff. I need to find myself. She's like, find yourself a job is what you need to do. And so she just never got it. And I was like, what? I don't want to be miserable. She literally said to me one time, you're supposed to hate your job. That's why God made beer. And
Yeah, that's perfect.
that's just kind of how our parents kind of thought. And so I made damn sure I did the opposite with you, where I was like,
Right.
create your own career, create your own life, be an
Well-
influencer, actor, whatever you want to do, entertain the creative arts, and let's go to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Like, that
Right.
was That was a
Yeah.
big part of me getting here.
Well,
'Cause
can
I
you
don't,
imagine even like all these Gen Zers have even a sprinkle of that in them, and then you throw them in public school?
yeah.
That's why there's so much rebellion. That's why there's so much craziness. And then you not only do that, but then give them a platform where they can say whatever they want and do whatever they want with this creativity. Even is really, really, really cool. And I think it's worrisome. I think honestly, these types of problems is one of those things that goes time. When millennials become teachers, when all the moms are millennials, I think is when things will start to kind of simmer down. Of course, everything is gonna go in a loop. I think it'll
Wow.
eventually hurt us and do whatever. But until then, it's just like there needs to be change in a lot of areas, especially the school system.
I think there are a couple of Gen Z teachers now.
Oh, you know
there,
what?
there are some Gen Z
Yeah,
congressmen.
What's the oldest Gen
I think
Z?
it's
Is
25
25?
now. 20,
Oh,
Yeah, you can be a
really?
teacher 25.
24, 25 maybe.
Usually graduate college with 23.
Yeah.
If a
yeah,
the bachelor's.
right. So,
so
there
there are.
technically
We just
there
need
are,
more. I mean, think about all the teachers you know about and have seen. They're all
Um,
a little bit
I want
older.
to say this too before I forget. And like when I was talking earlier about how I would try to be extra hard on you, or at least not hard on you, but like show you something in a more complicated way so that you would do it easier later in life, whether it be cooking or driving. You learn to drive, in a sports car, in a stick shift, in the rain, all this at night. I wanted things to be easier for you. The thing that I was missing with that, and I think a lot of parents miss, is people, especially kids, don't remember what you say nearly as much as they remember how you made them feel.
Right.
So even if you're
Oh, yeah.
telling them something true or showing them the right way to do something, if you make them feel scared of this thing in the process, they're just going to want to back away from it. So what you're telling them is not even going to matter.
Mm-hmm.
And I was missing that part. And I think a lot of Gen Xers and a lot of boomers for sure miss that. Remember when I brought you a bunch of nostalgic like candy and stuff not too long ago? I came back from a comedy show. I think
Yeah.
I was in Vegas or whatever, and I stopped at that place. That place has a restaurant in it. And I was at that restaurant, and there was a kid there that was probably 13, and he was doing that thing where he had his hood closed like Kenny from South Park.
Okay.
It was like almost all the way closed. And his mom was probably Gen X. She's maybe a little bit older than me, but Gen X. And she just flipped out on this kid. He's sitting at the table by himself. He's got his hood almost completely closed and he's just slumped over. And she's going, "Why are you like this in public? Why are you doing this? Why can't you participate in our family activities?" And she is going off on him. And I'm like,
I would have said something.
all you're doing is you're gonna make him, like, clearly he has some social anxiety
He's already stressed.
for something. So maybe just talk to him privately, like, "Hey, I've noticed you don't really want to come out of your shell, or you're out of your hoodie. What's going on? Let's talk to a therapist." Or maybe just sign him up for therapy and stay the hell out of it if you don't want to have that conversation. But the way you're making him feel right now is he wish he had a metal hoodie.
Yeah.
Like, he just wants to crawl further inside.
Exactly.
So even though technically what she's saying, I get it, you should try to participate in your family activities and not lock yourself in a hole every time you go out. And I'm sure she's frustrated by that. The way you're making him feel, it doesn't matter if you're right. The way you're making him feel is going to have the opposite effect. So when I say that a lot of Gen Xers and boomers have blind spots, that's what that is. The way our parents raised us was not in a way to be open to feelings or understanding to someone who's wronging you. If
Right.
someone's being a dick, it's because they're a dick. It's not because they have problems going on,
Right.
right? If someone was bullying you, it's because they were mean. No, it's because they're probably being bullied at home. Like, there's a
Right.
lot of stuff going on in that person's life. And I think just as a society in general, we would do better to stop and understand that when someone's hurting you or harming you or doing something irritating, or your kid is like freaking out or going into a shell or not behaving the way you want them to behave, deal with it on an emotional level, solve that problem, and the rest will probably fix itself.
No, 100%. And I think if anything, just even paying attention to the emotional part first, in general, they're gonna open up more. And that being that closed off, them understanding that you're worried about how they feel as the priority, it helps them go, okay, you're here to help. You're not here to fix the problem.
Yep.
And there's a big difference there. But
Well, this episode wasn't as funny, but I think it was productive.
It was a good conversation, and I think we can even do more episodes like how we do games and stuff, and we'll still do all that and the pop-ups. I'm thinking about maybe I'll do a Gen Z celebrity version at some point, maybe. So keep posted for that. But yeah, we'll do more stuff like this where we're just kind of
Also,
stuff. It's very fun.
May 13th, I'm doing a live virtual comedy show where you can be in the audience.
May 13th.
May 13th, and the tickets are at nowherecomedy.com. I'm going to be doing a full. I'm headlining a stand-up comedy show. I'm going to be in a studio where the audience is going to be on Zoom, and you're going to be all around me on screens. So join the virtual audience. The tickets are at nowherecomedy.com. I'm launching my tour starting on May 13th. Technically, I'm starting April 14th, but I'm going to Phoenix April 14th and 15th. Then I'm going to Little Rock, Arkansas at the end of April. All the tickets are at davidcsmalley.com. I'm on the Good White tour. That's what I'm calling my tour because my special is going to be called Good White. So if you're not going to be in Little Rock or Phoenix, try to join me. Oh, and I'm going to be at the Ice House as well the same day, May 13th. I'll be at the Ice House later that night. So if you're in Los Angeles, you can come to that show. And I think May 12th, I'm in Burbank at Nightcap. All my stuff's going to be at davidcsmalley.com. So, yeah, go there, and I hope you join the virtual audience because most of you probably aren't in Los Angeles or Little Rock or Phoenix. So
And we've done it before.
May 13th, yeah, that's where we did the Daughter Issues Live.
And it's fun. Like,
It's
wait,
so
we're
fun.
not just trying this
Isn't
out.
it cool with all the screens
cool.
wrapped around you?
It's so cool with the screens and seeing everyone. Like, it doesn't have to be. You don't have to. Everyone just sets up a phone. Like, it's like the coolest FaceTime ever.
Yeah.
And like, you know how when you're FaceTiming, you get to be in your bed, you get to have your snacks, your animals, a friend. You know, you're chilling and you're good. And then you have a show that's live.
You
It's
just
really
unmute
cool.
your mic and you get to laugh and enjoy the, and if I ask you a question, you just talk back. There's also even a VIP we're going to be hanging out after. So nowherecomedy.com, click on my face, and I'll see you May 13th. Time for you to end this one.
Is it? Is it time? Is it the time?
It's actually 1 minute over.
Well, you need to stop talking then and let me, because you always rush my outros and I don't appreciate it. See him looking at his watch in the middle of me trying to end the show. You don't even understand the weight I have. I have to end the show and you don't. Okay? You need to give me more time next time. I'll start acting like a cat. The show that we're doing right now. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. Has now ended.
Get every single episode plus video and talk to us in the comments at daughterpod.com.